Hey historians, Mr. Birch here, and welcome to 8th grade social studies test practice questions. Today we're going to be talking about early U.S. government. When you see the question, press pause, try to read and answer the question, and then press play and we'll go over it together. Let's get started. Alright, this information was included in a slideshow presentation to a history class. Let's look below. It says strengths: ability to declare war, ability to make treaties, authority to operate post offices. Which document was the focus of this presentation? This one's a little bit tricky. They're trying to confuse us a little bit maybe. So what is the question asking? It's saying what? We don't even need that whole first line. It doesn't even matter, right? Up here, none of this matters. We need to know that which document, and then these are the strengths of this document. And I'll just be honest with you, this question is kind of backwards in a lot of ways, because when we talk about this particular document, usually we don't talk about the strengths of it, we talk about the weaknesses of it. And this question has flipped it, so we have to pay close attention. The strengths of this document are these three things. So what can we eliminate? The Mayflower Compact, and I'll tell you why. Because the Mayflower Compact was famously written by the Pilgrims, right? And they weren't even at the New World yet. So this is in 1620 or so, and we see that operate post offices. Do you really think that they were setting up like one of the first colonies in this whole area and they needed post offices? There was less than 200 people on their ship, and after the first winter there was only 50 something. I don't think they needed post offices, so it just doesn't make sense. And then next, the Virginia Declaration of Rights. If we're declaring the rights of the people, if we're declaring rights, like the right of free speech, for example, well, our rights don't usually make up post offices and treaties and war, right? So that one doesn't make sense either. So what do we need to know? Let's go over what all four of these things are real quick. The Mayflower Compact was an agreement signed by the Pilgrims on their route to the New World in 1620, right? Just forming their kind of first type of government. Articles of Confederation was the first government of the United States in 1777. The Virginia Declaration of Rights was a document declaring rights of humanity in the state of Virginia, in the colony of Virginia in 1776. Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776, and it was declaring the independence from King George in Great Britain, basically telling him and the world that the U.S. was a free and independent nation. So the only one here that really even makes sense if we know what these are is the Articles of Confederation. Again, we normally talk about the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation, not the strengths. But this is the only one that really establishes a government in modern times. Declaring rights, well, these aren't declaring rights. You don't have the right to a post office. That doesn't make sense. Declaring independence. We're independent from you and we want a post office. That's not really how that works. And then the Mayflower Compact was kind of establishing a government, but it was so early on. Again, the post office one kind of helps us with that. The Articles of Confederation, this is the only one that really makes sense here. Let's talk a little bit more about early U.S. government. Okay, so the Articles of Confederation was created in 1777 by the Continental Congress and finally fully ratified by all the states in 1781. Ratified just means signed into law and agreed upon. Let's talk a little bit about the Declaration of Independence here. It was signed and sent in 1776 to King George. So let's kind of compare these two. The Declaration of Independence, we're declaring to you and the rest of the world that we are an independent nation. So it told him, King George, essentially that his colonies in America were through with his overbearing rule and decided to free themselves and become independent. That's the Declaration of Independence. Well, after declaring their independence, the Continental Congress quickly began working on creating a government. Well, we're independent, we need our own government now, to unite and rule their very separate and unique states. So the thing to remember is that it was really a weak document, the Articles of Confederation. It was really weak because it didn't give much power to a central government. They were afraid of an overbearing ruling leadership, just like what they got out of, right? So most of the power was in the hands of the states. There was no central bank. There was no way to decide or work out finances as a United States government. There was no president. There was no judicial system. There was a lot of things that this Articles of Confederation was lacking. And that's why we eventually led to the creation of a newer, better government not long after this.